So, welcome back, everybody, to the No Clue Inc. podcast. Today, I am here with my good friend, Lori Halter. Excited to have you on the podcast today. She is in a different type of industry than we have interviewed before, and she owns a PR, public relations firm called Charisma Communications. Started it, founded, has grown it. I think that one thing that's interesting is going to come out of our talk today is what do you do when you've grown your business big and now you're going to try to go bigger? And we've had a lot of offline conversations about that. So welcome, Lori.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. We're both such good friends off screen, so I'm super excited to do the podcast with you.
Yeah, I know. We talk about so many different ideas and things. And, I shared with her before we started this recording. I was like, I always imagine us talking to our friends. We have pretty good friend groups and people say, oh my gosh, Lori owns this amazing PR firm. I'm not sure what she does or how she got started. But we have people that are working their corporate jobs and I imagine a woman driving in her car right now, listening to this going, oh my gosh, yes, I really always wanted to do that. So tell us initially how you got started with your own PR firm.
Yeah. So I love this story because it's also this big thing of like women celebrating and honoring women. I started in the automotive industry. I was working for a company in marketing and been there 3 years, was growing really fast within the company and had a female boss. She was really pushing me and behind me and like wanted me to go up the ranks very quickly. And I was, but every day I just was feeling this like need to work for myself. It was that at the time I didn't know what it was, but it was that entrepreneurial feel of like, I want to own my own thing. So I started in 1999 in automotive. In 2003, I jumped into my own agency. So I've had Charisma Communication 21 years now. And I went to her and just said, look, I feel really strongly that I just can't work for a company. I've loved working for you, but I want to do my own thing. And so she laid me off so I could get severance and they became my first client. So like not only did she help me by laying me off and like setting me up, but then they became my first client. And so Charisma Communications was born. And like I said, that was 21 years ago. We've been in automotive ever since. We cannot seem to get out of automotive. Once it has you in, you can't get out. And we've just had like wild success. And I'm so honored and privileged to like lead the agency for all these years.
Yeah. Has it always been called Charisma?
Yeah. And in fact, funny story, like we're just going through a rebrand right now. I have not rebranded my logo in 21 years. It's beyond time. But when I started, our logo is a blue circle and it says Charisma Communications in the middle. And it's because like I started the agency at 27. So my first logo was a martini glass and the blue circle was the olive. And, some of that is like, oh my God, that's such a 27-year-old thing to do like a martini glass. But I've always wanted to keep the blue logo because it always, to me, it represents like where we came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So she lays you off. So that was your last employee position.
This is so bizarre, Casey. I've worked for a company 3 years, my entire career that now spans like 25 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I assume like you're making pretty good money. You have health benefits. You have all those things, all the things that I always like, I kind of call them the golden handcuffs.
Yes.
Like you have so many things are so good with employers now, especially now, perks and benefits that they offer. And then they take your time in exchange. So what helped you get over the fear? I mean, any entrepreneur, when they start out, they have a healthy amount of fear, right?
Yeah. Well, I think two things. One is like, for me, and I think for anyone listening, this is interesting. If you feel deep down a calling to start your own thing, don't ignore that feeling. Because for me, it was almost this feeling like I can't continue not working for myself. I can't continue not doing this. And when I've talked to entrepreneurs, they're generally like, yeah, we can't imagine doing anything else except creating and working for ourselves. So that's one. But the other, and I'm going to be totally honest, at the time, my husband was working a stable job. And so the fear-based, I kind of was like, okay, the worst possible thing that can happen is after 6 months to a year, this doesn't work out. And I go find another job in corporate America. But I didn't have to worry about my month-to-month living situation because we had an agreement where he said, I'm really behind you. I want you to do this. And I'll kind of take the brunt of the financial struggle for the first year. So like that cannot be overlooked. I definitely had like a little bit of a safety net underneath me starting out.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that too, because we talked about that with one of my good friends on a previous podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, no one really talks about it. And you see these entrepreneurs, or you see people starting businesses and you're like, well, how are they you know,
Totally.
because
Totally.
and you don't really, it's like, oh, we're just making it work. It's like, no, there's probably an agreement between that couple of like, help me, support me while I do this, and I'll have something much bigger for us in the future.
100%. And I try to be honest in all ways, especially with young entrepreneurs. It's like, no, this is how I did it, guys. I didn't just jump out and say like, I'm going to make I mean, I did say I'm going to make this happen. But there was a safety net for sure. And so I hate when I see influencers being like, I just jumped out and made it. It's like, no, there's things underneath. There's scaffolding underneath that helped me get started.
Yeah. So a lot of people, so you start your own PR firm, you have your first client, which is, that was such a step up, really good.
Yeah.
But a lot of people see PR and they're like, it's kind of elusive. Like you don't really know. And one thing I've noticed about your business is that it's very strategic, and it's almost like a science project of like how you work with your clients. And I've seen you do it. But what do you say to people that are like, what is PR?
Yeah, well, I get that all the time, to be honest, like PR, or they're like, okay, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, which technically, I guess you could say it is, but truly, I think PR, when I'm explaining the difference, especially between like PR and marketing, PR is engagement and thought leadership content put out to get either your executives or your product in different publications, talked about on podcasts, you end up on stages speaking. So that's PR. Marketing is more lead gen based. So marketing is going to be more of the things that are going to drive leads. And so that's what I say between the two of those. But what we do with clients really from a PR perspective, we focus on 5 things. One is writing press releases and sending them out to the media, and pitching. Pitching is like generally like would be me talking to an editor and saying, this is part of a much bigger story, and here's why I think you should interview this executive about X. Like right now in automotive, AI is really big, how AI is helping. So a pitch may be like, this is how AI is helping people in the service drive. So that's one. 2 is getting them on stages speaking. So we help with the applications, and we help them come up with like what is going to be the best, most interesting topic that they can pitch to be a speaker on stage. We also do ghostwritten articles. So those are thought leadership pieces that are generally trend-based, not product-based, and speak to the executives mostly about that, and then write the article for them. And then a new piece we've added is social media, because what we were finding is we were getting all these podcasts, we were getting all these interviews, handing them over to the client. They weren't doing anything with them. So it's really key to amplify the content that you are providing out. And so the easiest way to do that is social media. And then the 5th, and it's just coming and it's becoming so big, is podcast and video. So like creating video assets, getting our guests on podcasts, helping them with thought leadership pieces that are published under their own LinkedIn brand. And so those are really kind of the 5 ways. When we start working with clients, we say like, these are the 5 things we're going to do. We're going to do them monthly. And
monthly, okay. I was about to ask, that was my next question. Monthly, like, what do you do it?
Yeah, monthly. I mean, we're doing like a press release every month. We're looking at applications for speaking every month. We're looking for awards every month. The articles that we write, we're trying to pump out monthly. And the goal is just the amount of content at that point that you're putting out. I always say this, I want people to say, we can't turn around without seeing you. And that's a good PR campaign, is when you feel like you're seeing the person or the product or the company everywhere you turn.
Interesting. So I have a couple questions, because the first thing that comes to mind is like, I know you yourself have grown this company, and I know you have a small staff, but that is a lot of content to be creating for multiple clients that you have. I mean,
yeah. So we're up to 15 clients on a monthly basis, which means we're creating at least 15 pieces of content in terms of articles every month. We're also creating all the social media calendars for 15 clients, which includes 12 posts a month. So I'm not good at math, but that's over 100 posts that we're doing per month. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a ridiculous amount of content. So the way I've set up my team is I have a small team underneath me that handles PR, social, marketing. And then under them is a stable of about 8 writers, just to keep up with the amount of content needs per month.
And how has that changed? I mean, I'm just imagining, I can see you because I know you and your personality, and I can almost see you going to your boss and going, I just have this in me, in my gut, you know, I feel like I want to do my own thing. And okay, now I have this company, and I'm going to do PR, and I'm going to do these 3 things or these 5 things for companies that really need it. Yeah. But how much has that changed? Like when you started to now, Gosh, I mean,
It's insane. Like I'll
yeah.
tell you, the biggest change has been social media. And so really now what we have in the PR world is people driving their own brand. Here's how old I am. When I started, you used to fax press releases, fax to media. That's how old I am and how long I've been in the industry. But I think the biggest thing with social media is there was no LinkedIn, or if there was, it was like a job search site. You know, it was definitely not used for thought leadership content.
Mm-hmm.
And so this idea that like we work with our clients in terms of you are your own kind of influencer now, which means you can put content out to your own channels, build your own channels. And that is the new PR. It used to be the only way you could get a mention about your product was in a magazine article. Now it's like, look, guys, if you have something important to say, let's video it for you. Let's write an article about it. Put it out under your own LinkedIn. I have clients who have like 10,000 people on LinkedIn. That is a big media kind of publication if we're thinking in those terms. So I think the biggest change is just the ability for every single person to be their own content creator and to see their social media as their own personal publications to put out whatever they want.
Yeah. That's such a good point. And it actually, what makes me think is, what do you do? I mean, when you're the one driving the strategy, what do you do? And I see this. I have my own opinion about what bad PR looks like.
Okay.
What do you do when people do have more control like that? You say, I don't think that you should be the one driving or creating content or engaging and it's not a good fit, or because information comes out so quickly, it also can turn sour real quickly.
Yeah.
Doing cleanup.
So the way we generally deal with that is we've just taken over their PR, right? Or we've taken over their social media. But I'm also I've run into this too an awful lot, where companies are trying to create social media for their employees or keep them from doing certain things. And that is really important from a branding perspective to make sure all of your employees are on the same page. But I really try to back companies away from owning the information that the individuals can post or posting for them. Because the thing where social media really shines and the way you're going to get the most engagement is if you're real and if you're authentic. Mm-hmm. And if you take away each individual's voice and make it more of a kind of corporate voice, you're not going to get the same engagement because people know they can sniff out that kind of thing. So generally what we do is we'll take over the company's social media, but we'll really encourage the company itself to make social media guidelines and boundaries. So, you know, Susie over here isn't like taking the whole company down with her posts. So we'll definitely encourage them to do boundaries, but we say, no, keep your individuals who work for you as authentic as possible in their posting. I'm really big on that. Like, you know me, relationships are huge for me, and being authentic online is so important these days. People can sniff out corporate speak in a heartbeat.
I agree. I totally agree. And, you know, I think with the ChatGPT and all of this, it's not even video that you can, if you know a person and you're reading their content, you're like, that's not really their voice.
Yeah. And I'll tell you even a personal story of mine. I'm in PR. I've been doing it for 20 plus years. We recently started with a person who clips my video. He'll interview me, clip my video, and put posts together for us. So I started using these posts. The videos are awesome. I started copying and pasting the posts that he would put together on my personal page. I had 2 or 3 people that reached out and were like, this doesn't sound like you anymore. This doesn't sound like you. And so the way I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. And here I am. I've been preaching this the whole time and I'm doing the same thing. So the way I got past that is I'll post the video, but then do the commentary in the post myself.
Oh yeah.
Because they could tell everyone has their own unique voice. And if you're not hitting it, people know immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. What do you think is where's kind of this, I mean, yes, we've got social media. It's easier to get your product out there with the messaging. Where do you think it's almost like, what's next in this world of PR? Yeah,
it's, I think, video obviously has gotten huge. And then I think we'll be using AI, but in a different way. I am not a fan of ChatGPT. I have a lot of my clients, even some older clients who have taken it on them. They've said, well, now that ChatGPT is here, we're going to take on the content creation ourselves. They come back to us because it's like you can tell something has been written in ChatGPT. You can just tell. I can sniff it out in a second. So I think AI will be really important in PR, but it's going to be more of a way of amassing research. Like you could put into ChatGPT, tell me all the most massive trends right now in automotive based on everything you've read about automotive. So using ChatGPT and AI to quickly accumulate news and information that then you can then kind of create pitches out of for trends and things. Or we'll use ChatGPT to kind of start a draft. Like it's a good way to start a draft. But then obviously, like everything we've talked about, PR is such a relationship driven process that the voice has to come from the individual who's writing. We all start doing ChatGPT. We're all going to start sounding the same and saying the same things. And
yeah,
do not do that, guys. Please don't do that.
Yeah. I'm glad that you're out there preaching that message, because I see some stuff, especially because I come from the franchising world,
yes,
where there are internal Lori Halters that are doing this.
Yeah.
And, they would put out some stuff sometimes, or other brands. I see some pretty big brands put out some content, and I'm like, and they're blanketing it. They're blanketing it for every location they have in the United States. And I'm like, kind of that. And if the franchise is located in the South, it has a different voice that doesn't. It's
100%. Or like even think about go even like further down than that. So it's geolocated. But if someone, let's take your franchise when you owned your massage.
Yeah, massage house. Yeah.
If someone came in and met you and then saw something under your franchised massage company that didn't sound like you, it's going to come across as disingenuous. So it's not even geolocated. It's like the brand of the individual owners is so important.
Especially in small business. I mean, I think you can get away with it better when you're big. I mean, the stakes are on the line a lot more. I've posted some things myself. I remember when I owned that company, when I posted some things and it would have like an error. I would go back, one of those things you post and you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, that was misspelled. And they're like, who is this? But I kind of was sometimes like, I want to leave it, because then they knew I wrote it,
Yeah, exactly. And one way I will share that you can get around this, let's say if you're running a business right now, and a franchise is a great example, and corporate wants to put out, then have a company page where you post, like I'll do this for mine. I have a corporate page, but then I have a personal LinkedIn page that has nothing to do with what my company's posting and everything to do with what me as an individual and an entrepreneur wants to say. And so that's like a nice way to sort of, do the national brand, but then for you yourself on your own personal pages, create your own brand. That's all about what's important to you.
I love that. And that's such a good transition into my next question, which is someone out there right now is like, I'm going to start a PR firm. I have an entrepreneurial spirit or kind of sounds like what you did. Like I'm already doing this kind of work. And I would imagine that some of those relationships you built with the media and the editors and the people that you want to get, you took those with you, right?
100%. That's why I actually stayed in automotive. Is honestly, I tried to kind of get out of automotive the first couple of years and then realized that I had amassed these relationships, these contacts, understanding of the industry. And so finally, a couple of years in, I was like, why am I not just niching myself in to automotive technology? That's what I know. That's where my relationships lie. And so I really would encourage anyone that's listening to this, if you're currently working in a position where you like the industry, but you may not like what you're doing, and you're thinking of jumping into your own thing, 100% start in the industry you're currently in, because that's where all of your contacts lie.
Yeah. Yep. So you would recommend that they niche themselves
to begin. So let's say they niche themselves to begin, and then they decide like they want to grow into additional industries, do it. But to begin, like start out with the easiest transition in, which is what you're currently doing.
Yeah, that's great. And what about pricing? Like when you come out and you switch your own thing, how do you price yourself? Because
I made huge mistake. If you talk about one mistake I made, it was pricing when I first came out. I should have done more research. Number one, do your research and find out how much agencies charge. So when I started, now keep in mind, this was like over 20 years ago, but I remember I pitched a big client because a friend of mine got me the opportunity. I pitched a full PR program for $500. Let me tell you, at the time, PR agencies were charging, like big time PR agencies were charging $10,000 a month. So I actually didn't get the contract because they're like, this girl does not know what she's doing. I mean, $500 a month for PR. So do your research, find out. But I will say one of the ways that I got started, and a really nice thing to do if you're starting out, is pick a couple of companies that you've worked with, ask if they'll be your beta or early adopter agencies, and give them a seat discount. Say, come on, I want to show what I can do. I'm going to give you this discount, and then you'll be getting great PR and I'll be getting my first clients. And then you take those first clients and run with them, with your social and the case studies and all the success stories. But definitely do your research about like, what are agencies in your space charging before you put proposals together.
Yeah. And I'm sure back then, I mean, I'm sure it was a lot of work,
Yeah.
PR, but I feel like it's even more work now. Do you think that's fair?
100%. And it's only because there's so many more places to pitch and put content. So for instance, back then I said publications were one of the main ways in PR that you got people in magazines. Today, you've got magazines, you've got podcasts, you've got speaker events, you've got LinkedIn, you've got Facebook, you've got Instagram. I mean, just the pure amount of channels that you can now put content out through is overwhelming. So
Yeah.
that's why it's so important. I'll talk to clients and say, guys, what you actually need, you have everything needed to create a PR campaign internally. What you need is the execution. That's the hardest thing as an agency that's not only willing to say, this is what you need to do, but then execute on that plan, because there truly is so many different places that it can get overwhelming. And then you get, analysis paralysis and you're dead in the water. So I think for anyone that's looking for an agency that may be listening, if you feel like you can do it all in-house, you probably can, but will you? That's really the main question.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I mean, I feel like can be a full-time job, especially when you're trying to grow a brand and you sit there and you think, okay, you want to talk about it on a podcast, but then once you start to sell things, like even with this e-bikes company that we're starting up,
right.
We're starting to sell. We're starting to get some sales. And, we're like, we need podcast testimonials. We need video testimonials of our current clients that have had their e-bikes and they've been playing with them and riding them for months now. And on our team, we have a team of 5, because we're just kind of a little startup. And we're talking on the phone and they're like, okay, well, who's going to schedule them? Who's going to record them? Who's going to edit it?
Yeah.
And they're like, Casey, you know how to do that. I'll do it. And I'm like, guys, I have other stuff to do.
You're like, I'm running the company. I can't be getting the case studies.
Right. And then there's like content that has to go up. And luckily, we can do it now because we have a band, we're not so big, and you can pre-schedule content, right?
Yeah.
But it's a full-time thing, and that's a small company. So I can't even imagine like when you have big sales going on and things like that. So
no, you're absolutely right. And I would say even internally, I've learned the hard way over the last couple of years. Now, this is more of an entrepreneurial lesson than PR, but I've learned that things were I was trying to do like my QuickBooks and things. So it's like, no, just hire someone who knows how to do that. If there are things that I've found that are taking my time and energy that don't bring me joy and I'm not good at, give those away. Give those to the people who are good at them. And that's your fastest way to growth. It wasn't until I switched my mindset of like, I don't need to do it all, that we started growing really fast, because then you can really focus in on the things that you're really good at and let other people focus in on the things that they're really good at.
Yeah, that's really good advice too. I think we've talked about that too before, because one thing being around you, especially when we've been at like Business Bourbon and Cigars together, you are always on, but I also feel like PR is almost, if you're not careful, I feel like it could be a 24/7 kind of thing.
Oh, I've had to set up some very, very strong and hard boundaries, because relationships are my thing. I love relationships. It's what drives everything I do in every area of my life. But exactly, if you're not careful, what that means is suddenly I have clients texting me over the weekend or at 9:00 at night saying, can you help me with this? So it's taken me a long time, but I've had to put some pretty solid boundaries in place to make sure that doesn't happen. And that my time and energy, as you know, I was going to say young kids. They're no longer young. They're 16 and 19, but I have 2 kids that also deserve my time and energy. And so it's really that as an entrepreneur, it's really hard to try and time manage that type of thing.
Yeah. So what is your advice? Because that was one of my questions that I had written down, is like, I feel like PR, when shit hits a fan, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen that play out in the automotive industry.
We've had quite a few of those lately.
It's been an interesting year for those guys. And when that happens, they're looking to you like Lori, save me. Like, what's the strategy? What do we do? There's bad press. How do you manage your own state?
I love that. I love that question. So I like saying like, you can have it all, just not all at once. And what I mean by that is usually my number one priority is my kids. Always family comes first, always. So that helps make decisions in terms of like, Do you go to this event? Do you take this opportunity? And it's been hard this last year. I've been invited to a lot of different things that I would love to do. And I've had to say no because like my daughter has a recital or my son is moving into his college that week. And so number one is like figure out your priority. However, when there are things like that, like crises that come up that our clients really need us for, I then switch into go mode for them. And the kids stuff and the family stuff has to take a back burner during that point because the clients really need it's happening real time. I can't say like I'm waiting until after the weekend to get back to you on this. When crisis hits, you really do need to be in it with your clients. And all of my clients, I'm so lucky. They're all my friends too. I mean, I really keep a tight circle on, I want to work with people I like. And so you want to help your friends. You want to make sure they're successful and that they're okay. And so I think, pick your one priority overall, but have enough flexibility in your plan that if a client or a partner or a friend really needs you, you kick in for them during that time. And then you go back to your number one priority afterward. But there needs to be some flexibility to where you can jump in if and when needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, I mean, I feel like the speed to get information out is so much easier now, but also the speed to mitigate a crisis.
Oh. Well, you and I have been together at a show where there was something that went awry with a launch, and I'd had a couple glasses of wine. It was dinner. It was and I had to jump into PR mode. I had to jump into PR mode, go talk to the event organizers, make sure the person was okay, help the person who was running the event create what we're going to say, the type of tone we're going to take. And so that was just a good example of it doesn't matter where you're at or what you're doing. If a need comes up that you need to jump in and go into PR mode, you have to do it because to your point, PR really is one of those situations where if it's a problem or if it's a challenge that's coming up that's going to cause a problem, you can't wait a couple days to do that. You have to just jump right into the middle and start taking care of it.
Yeah. How many PR firms do you think are in operation? I don't know.
I have no idea because you've got the big ones. So you've got the really, really big agencies, but then within each industry and within each kind of niche, you've got really niched in PR firms. So that's a great question. I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, if you, on two sides, I'm curious, okay, someone's listening and they're like, I'm going to start a PR firm.
Mm-hmm.
I think you gave some great advice about stay in the industry you're in, even if it's, it's not really your passion, but you may find your passion having your own firm and creating on your own, right? Versus for an employer. But also I'm thinking on the other side of it, it's if you're a business owner and you're I have this e-bike distributor business, I need to find a PR firm. How do people go about finding the right PR firm? What are the questions you ask?
Oh, I love that. Okay. First of all, start asking some of the people in the industry who may already be using PR. What I would not do is go to Google and just Google best PR firm for e-bikes, because all you're going to get from that is someone who's paid the most for SEO. They're going to, so number one, go talk to some of the people in the industry. Say, have you used a PR firm? Do you know of anyone in the space? And I know I'm biased because I do a niche PR, but by being in automotive technology only, and we're even more niche than just automotive. We don't even work with dealerships. We work with technology providers that want to sell into dealerships. So even within automotive, we're even more kind of dialed in. But I think if you can find someone who specializes in that space, if you're a company now, if you can find someone who specializes in your space, they're going to be your best bet every time because they're going to know the players. I already have all of the editors in the space are my friends. So if I send a text, if I send an email, that text or email is going to be listened to more so than someone else that comes in who doesn't know them. So, ask around. Some of the questions I would ask is, what to you makes a great PR campaign? After you've told them about you, say, who do you think our audience is? And what do you think our main message is? Ask about their strategy, but ask about their execution. How many people are on your team? How do you execute these plans? Because if there's one thing I've seen in PR that doesn't work well, it's you can have the best plan in the world. If you don't execute, if you don't have people that are creating the content, putting it out, doing the social media, then who cares? The strategy doesn't matter if you don't have people that can actually religiously update the content on your behalf.
Yes.
So those would be some of the main questions. And then, price is always a question. So if the price, this has happened to me quite a bit, our price has now gotten to be a little outside the bounds of what a lot of startups can afford. And so I think it's fair. I've had people say, okay, well, if you can't help us, do you know someone who can? Do you know someone who is at our price point who we can talk to? And my answer to that is always yes. I always know someone that I can refer them to that can be more within the price range and helpful to them. So always ask. I don't think people would be offended if you say, this isn't in our price range right now, but do you have someone that maybe we could work with who would be?
Yeah. And I think that's an important point too, because it shows that you've gotten to a point where like you're not just taking on any client, you know?
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's hard. Yeah. Like I said, I have personal relationships are so important to me, but to even take that one step further, I've gotten to the point where like all the calls coming in are now routed through our client success manager. And she has to kind of like decision tree them because there's only one of me. And so you get to a point where it's like, oh my gosh, my time needs to go to my clients, not like all these requests for different things. I want to be helpful, but you do get to a point where that kind of goes back to the boundaries again. Like, how do you determine who gets your time on a daily basis?
Yeah. Such good advice. Really good. All right. Last minute thoughts. I think you already try to get, every time I have an interview, I'm always like, okay, what's the one thing you had no clue about? But I think we answered that with the pricing.
Price, 100%.
Because the $500.
I still know. And Jay, my friend, I still remember this. God, this was such a great learning moment. He called me and he was like, girl, you botched that one. Like $500. He was like, you made yourself look bad and me look bad. And I was like, I know, I'm so sorry. Like I definitely botched that. And so I did not get that contract.
Yeah. But well, I mean, that's like learning by, glad you learned it because you're right. Like that was a long time ago, but I remember whenever I was working in the automotive industry and I was selling marketing, sometimes I dealt with ad agencies.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was just shocked at the money they charge. Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
And, we would walk in and back then, and, the deal that I sold them for marketing was like direct mailers, right?
Yeah.
And I would hand them over an invoice that was like 10, 12, 15, 20 grand.
Totally.
And they would just be like, all right, we'll get your check cut tomorrow.
Yeah. So imagine that. And then some fool coming in with like a $500 a month for a full PR program.
They're like, is that your lunch today?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you know what it showed? Here's the other lesson. Be prepared, right? I wasn't prepared for that opportunity. Like go in knowing where you stand, be prepared, be professional, and I like to say that's called failing forward. And it's the idea that you failed, but you learned a really important lesson. So you failed forward. That's like a great example of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think every entrepreneur has done that. Every one of us have done something that we look back on and we're like, oh, it's like cringeworthy. I mean, I can think of something that I did. I'm like, how embarrassing. But hopefully you're surrounded by people that are like graciously like, okay, her heart's in a good place. She's learning. And she'll never do that again.
I will never bid out a $500 program again.
Yeah, no. Awesome. Well, any last minute thoughts that you want to share with the audience before we?
I'll just say the last minute thought for me would be like, you know me so well. So my family is so important to me. My kids are so important to me. And so any moms out there that are deciding to be an entrepreneur, I would say like, first of all, do anything you want. If you want to work full time and you want to go after and get after it and you have kids, you go do that. If you want to split your time, have kids, go do that. So like the biggest thing is mom entrepreneurs, you build the system any way you want. But the second would be, I think the best way to move forward is to determine, like I said earlier, your number one priority. And if that's going to be like, I'm going to go see my daughter's tea time with mom today and nothing's going to stop me, keep that. Like, don't let the demands of running a business take you away from the things that are really, really important in life, which are like connecting with your family and friends.
Great advice. I love that. And I always tell mom entrepreneurs, I'm like, pick a business you can take your kids. I mean,
yes.
I have no, I'm like, if it's something you can handle and you're in and out and it's not a big thing. I'm all about, even with employees, when I owned my company, it's like, bring your kids, like these e-bike events that we go to, where people, communities get together and they do e-bikes and it's fun. I bring him, he brings his bike and it's fun for everybody. So I feel like we're at a point in society where things are more casual.
Yes.
And you include your life and it has to all fit together, especially for women, especially for moms.
I would 100% agree. And I think COVID really brought that in. We all had to take our work in-house. And so you saw the kids, you saw the pets, you saw all the things. And I think that's been a really nice side effect from COVID is we've kept that, which I'm really happy we have.
Yeah, I agree. There's one positive. So, what a great interview. I really appreciate you just sharing your raw history and how you built. And,
my mistake.
And kudos to you for just 20 years of owning a business and it growing and it keeps growing. That's, I see companies get big and then they try to go even beyond that. And that is hard. And you've done that and you've learned to delegate. And I see you doing more of that. And that's good because I don't, can't work 24/7.
That's right, girl. Well, thank you. I've loved being on your show. This has been great.
I know. So good. So I'm going to wrap us up here. Thank you guys for listening to the No Clue Inc. podcast. You can find us on all your Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your favorite podcast. I want to thank our guest today, Lori, for taking time out of her day to visit with us and hope she shared some interesting nuggets to inspire some of you entrepreneurs out there. So until next time, take care. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to the No Clue Inc. podcast, Adventures in Running a Business for Beginners. I hope you found some inspiration in today's episode. If you would go like us and leave us a comment, send us questions. You can listen to this podcast on any of your platforms where you find your favorite podcast shows. Until next time, much love to you all. Have a great day.